Hi. Hello everybody watching at the HealthyPlace channel. My name is Natasha Tracy and I work for HealthyPlace, and I'm really happy to be hosting this HealthyPlace Instagram live session today. Today I'm actually going to have the great honor of interviewing someone named Daylene Santana, and she is going to be joining us any second now. In fact, she's just hooking up. Hello.
Hi.
Excellent.
I'm good. How are you?
Just 1 second for me.
Okay.
Okay. There's just a small technical difficulty. Give me 1 sec.
You got it.
I'm just going to need 1 second. I'm so sorry.
No worries. Your hair is pretty amazing, by the way. Can you hear me? Oh, she can't hear my compliment. No, I think. Oh, well, okay. Oh, we can't hear my audio?
I'm hoping I can get your audio now. Just give me 1 second.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
I am so sorry for that. That was completely a technical difficulty, and by that I mean my personal difficulty.
No worries.
Am I pronouncing that right? Is it Daylene?
Yes, you are, and I complimented your hair when you couldn't hear me, so I want you to hear me. I love your hair. It's so sweet.
You are so sweet. Thank you so much. So, hello to the HealthyPlace viewing audience. This is Daylene Santana. As I said, she is the Bipolar Senorita, and I'm hoping you can start by telling us a little bit about yourself and maybe how you got the name Bipolar Senorita.
Yes. Okay. So, hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. And my name is Daylene Santana. I'm Cuban American, and I have bipolar 1 disorder. So about a year and a half ago, I came out of my bipolar closet, is what I like to call it, on social media. I had a manic episode in 2011, and I pretty much made a promise to myself after I reached psychosis and was hospitalized. I came home and I was so depressed and so traumatized by the situation. I realized that I should make a pact with myself and a promise that I would never speak about my illness to anyone. I would never write poetry again. And I did that for about almost 8 years until I felt so alone in my struggles that I realized I had to come out of my bipolar closet and find somebody who can relate to me, right? And so that's what I did. I wrote a poem, I posted it on social media, and basically that's how I'm here right now. And I became Bipolar Senorita. So that's really what led me to like this very moment, to be honest with you.
Well, that's amazing. So sometimes people say this to me, and I'm going to say it to you right now. It sounds like you took something that was inherently a pretty negative thing, but you went and you turned it into something positive today. So you went through a pretty dark time, but it sounds like you came out of that.
Does that sound... I don't know if I'm hearing you a little bit like later. Am I answering like really late?
You're perfect.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's literally what, I mean, the hardest the hardest thing I've ever had to deal with was my, my manic episode, and being diagnosed with bipolar 1 was one of the hardest things I've ever gone through. And I realized that in order to, it's actually my favorite quote. I'll share my favorite quote. You were assigned this mountain to show others it can be moved. So I really had to face the darkest part of my existence in order to kind of fulfill my purpose, which is to help others. But in order to do that, I had to really like come out of my bipolar closet, or, face what the hardest thing was for me.
So you said you're Cuban American.
Yes.
And I know that you talk a lot about stigma and stigma in the Latino community. I know you talk a lot about that. Can you tell me a little bit about what it's like for you being a Latino, and if you've experienced stigma because of your bipolar illness in that community?
Yeah, I mean, it really all starts kind of in the home. In Latino culture primarily, there is a lot of stigma in the house. There's a saying in Spanish that when translated in English, it means our dirty laundry should be washed at home. So that is something, yeah, it's really, really common in Latino culture. Is basically everything has to stay within the home. And problems, especially mental illness, something as taboo as that in our community, is really something that is not talked about. It stays at home, and it's something that, yeah, it really, really was a battle for me, because it had to take things getting really, really bad, aka my manic episode, to really seek help, even though mental illness does run in my family. Yeah, I did not feel comfortable talking about my depression when it started at a young age because of the stigma in the Latino community. And there's not a lot of representation about therapy in Latino families in the media either. So it was pretty hard for me to feel what I was feeling at a young age, and also being Latino and having we don't need to go to a doctor. We don't see therapists. Like, we figure that out here, and everything is hush hush. So yeah, it was weird. It was a weird time for me growing up with that.
So I want to take just 1 second, and I want to say, anyone who wants to ask a question, we are more than happy to start chatting with the audience directly. So please go ahead and write a question. I will make sure Daylene answers it. Also, I'm not sure if you're seeing everything on the screen, but someone from the South said that they were raised in the same way. So I know that even though some people might not be Latino, I know some of us have that exact same feeling from our family, which is, you keep family stuff within the family. Yeah. And in my opinion, all that does is keep a family sick.
I 100% agree. Whether it's talking about mental health issues, anything, there's a lot of the men in my family who would be like, no, I'm not going to the doctor just to fix my flu. It's just a very stubborn trait. And for some reason, I think in my family, it was just like a fear thing, like if there's something wrong, it's hard to admit when something's wrong with you, and asking for help was such a sign of tremendous weakness. And, I had to realize and kind of raise that with myself, like raise myself and be like, no, actually asking for help is a sign of strength, and looking for outside help outside of your family can be a wonderful thing.
So when you initially, and there's someone else saying, yeah, their family also came up that way. So I know a lot of people definitely know what you're going through there. So when you initially started experiencing depression symptoms when you were young, you said you didn't want to share them. At what point did you share with your family?
Well, it really, my manic episode was really kind of the turning point with everything. I started experiencing symptoms of depression when I was in about 6th grade, maybe a little younger. I would lie to my mother and say I was sick, like physically sick, so I wouldn't have to go to school. So what I would do was I would take like the lamp and put it on my forehead and make myself had a fever and get all like clammy hands and stuff. And she would believe me because I was a really great actress. And I would not go to school, and I just didn't understand. Like, I did not understand why I was under the covers and in the darkness for the entire day. Like, I had no idea what depression was. That word was not something that we used in schools or in my family. So yeah, it really took my manic episode to really, for my family to be like, wow, okay, so this is we have to deal with this. We absolutely have to deal with this because it was an emergency at that point, you know?
Absolutely. I know exactly what you mean, that it takes an emergency to get any kind of attention on the mental illness front.
Yes.
So I know that someone just asked what the theme of this broadcast is. And I just want to say the theme of this broadcast is talking to Daleen Santana, and we're going to talk a lot about stigma in the Latino community, but also about bipolar disorder in general, because it is World Bipolar Day. And we're sort of celebrating our bipolar today. That's what we're doing a little bit of. Okay. And there are definitely people who are saying thank you so much for sharing your story, and I definitely want to take a minute and just say thank you so much as well. I am an advocate as well, but sometimes it feels like you're the only voice, and of course I'm not the only voice. Your voice is here, and so many of our voices are out there. It's just sometimes we get a little separated.
You're so right, and thank you so much. I saw your live earlier today, and I was writing down notes, the sleep routine or sleep hygiene that you were talking about. I've never heard of that. I was like, wow, that's such an awesome, I was going to research it too. I've never heard of that term before. And I thank you so much for what you do too. And thank you for saying thank you. It's really a difficult thing to come out. And even now, like I've been doing this for like a year and a half, and it's still very difficult for me to talk about my experience sometimes because stigma is still really real. It still runs rampant in our society.
I agree completely. And sometimes you don't realize it's there until you're on the other side of it, which is why it's so great that you're speaking out, because my guess is so many people, even in your community, wouldn't necessarily say, oh, there's huge stigma in the community, but obviously it's very clear to you because you've actually had to experience it yourself. So.
Yeah, it's a crazy thing. Yeah.
So can you tell us what about your manic episode made it clear that you needed help?
Oh, that's a great question. I saw that somebody asked that. So in the beginning, nobody knew what was going on. It took about 2 months for it to get to a very kind of the peak. So in the beginning, it was just me tweeting a lot, and people thought that I was just coming out of my shell because I'm normally a shy person, and they were like, damn, Day is funny. Day is weird all of a sudden. She's like wearing all these provocative clothes. Look at her, you know? And yeah, everyone thought I was just like coming into my own, but in reality, that's not what was happening. I was slowly spiraling into a manic episode. So what made it clear was I was really losing touch with reality. I would call people and tell them that I was going to be on the Ellen show. I was emailing people pretty unrealistic things. I was I thought I was a rapper, you guys. I started rapping. I'm not a rapper. It was bad. It was bad. So many things that I did that were out of character. So I thought I was a rapper. I started telling people that I was going to be on the Ellen show. I would call a lot of my friends and family. I started thinking that Fidel Castro was this humanitarian, and I had this whole conspiracy theory about him. And so people started to realize that this wasn't rational thinking and that there was something going on with me. And so then my aunt, you know, came to my family, was like, listen, I actually think that she's having a manic episode and I've got to take her to the hospital. So she was a person that I really could trust. And so I went to the hospital with her, and that's how, you know, I was taken in. But it really took them, they had to see signs of me not being myself and losing touch with reality. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So welcome to everybody who is just joining us. This is Daleen Santana. She is the Bipolar Senorita, and she's talking a little bit more about her personal story with bipolar 1 disorder. So I just want to ask a quick follow-up question on that. So your aunt, it sounds like, understood that what was going on for you was out of character, and that's how you came to be at a hospital, I'm guessing?
Yeah.
And so did you then stay in a hospital at that time, and how long was that? What was that like?
So yes, I was admitted into the hospital, and I was there for about 2 weeks. And then after that, there's a lot, I don't know if, so for those of you who've never had a manic episode and don't know about bipolar disorder, when you have a manic episode, sometimes you don't remember a lot of things that happened. For me, to this day, there are still things that people said that I did or said that I don't remember at all. And there were also times when I would go somewhere where I went when I was manic, and my mind would kind of just like have a snippet of this weird memory of something that I did. So it's very weird. Memory and mania is like a very weird thing. But I do remember some of the hospital visit. I know I was there for like 2 weeks, and it was very strange. They kind of gave me all these different drugs. I slept a lot. And then after 2 weeks, I finally went back to my parents' house. I was 19 years old, so I was living with my parents. And then I just fell into like a terrible depression. Like I went mute. I didn't speak for 3 days at all. I didn't shower. I just stayed in bed. I just went to the bathroom to pee, and that's it. I literally did not move for 3 days or speak. So that was pretty hard.
That sounds really tough, for sure. I know a lot of people with bipolar experience that major depression after a mania, and I know they can be very devastating.
Yeah, it was devastating. That's the word. And then that's when I made the pact that I was talking about earlier, that I made that promise to myself. I was like, wait a second, I did all of these things? Like, that wasn't me. Like, that, I did not do that. But then I was like, no, wait, I did that? Because there's this weird, like, you're like, wait, I didn't do that. Like, that wasn't who I am. That wasn't Daylene Santana. Like, that's not who I am. I'm a good person. Like, I don't, and then you're like, wait, I did it. Like, even though I didn't do it, I still did it. And so when I had that realization, I realized I can't ever tell anyone that I have bipolar, and I can never talk about depression. I just can't do it. And then I was like, if I wrote all of this poetry while I was manic, and I really said that I would never write poetry again. And it happened in that time.
And I know that you actually, as you said, you started writing again, and I know that you write spoken word. Is that right?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Would you like to share some with us right now?
Yes, it's kind of long, but short. Well, it's like a minute. It's not that long.
I think we can handle it. Go for
it. Okay. I'll do to-do lists. Okay. Okay. My to-do list is longer than I'd like to admit. It is a step-by-step process of all the things I like to call small accomplishments, because that's what they are to me. Everything is a daunting task. I'm an elephant when I wake up. I weigh 6 tons. I cannot crawl. I am weak. Do I really need to shower? No, I'm okay for today. But brushing my teeth, doing my hair, putting mascara on my, thank God, naturally long lashes, so it looks like I actually tried, is a huge achievement. I barely do what I need to do. You know, I haven't used shaving cream in years. I don't remember the last time I did. I don't know the last time I was kind enough to my body to rub my legs in a circular motion, and suddenly I'm in my 20s, and this is what suppressing crisis at 26 looks like, and now it's either this life forever or getting help. Well, asking for help is all of these hands waiting to hold you, reaching out towards you, together in prayer for you, reaching out towards you, ready to save you, but you can't. They'll never be able to be of service if first you don't believe you deserve it. You're not the only one, the first or last. No one is perfect. Haven't you heard this? Now, stop thinking of this diagnosis as a confinement. We all just need to be reminded, when you can't get out of bed in the morning because of fear, trauma, shame, guilt, endless racing thoughts, you need to remember who the hell you are and your purpose. And if you still haven't found it yet, ask yourself how you can be of service. How is this illness serving you? This isn't taboo, not anymore. I refuse to believe it anymore. If we are the mad ones, then let us laugh the loudest. But in this journey, in our terrifying self-discovery, know that you can stand in a room and you be the proudest. Thank you.
I would clap. I'm clapping over here. Thank you so much for sharing that. I have to say I'm a little teary-eyed from that. Really, your words are beautiful, and you spoke them beautifully. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. You can see we have little hearts and we have little clapping going on for you. And I agree. I am clapping 100%. People saying we love it. And in fact, someone even said that was their favorite one of yours. So thank you so much.
Thanks.
So I want to just say hello to everyone in the Healthy Place audience who's just joining us. We are talking with, oh my goodness, I'm teary.
No.
Sorry. We're talking with Daleen Santana, and she is the Bipolar Senorita. She just shared with us some of her spoken word poetry, and it was beautiful, and it's something that I personally will be looking up more of, so thank you so much. And then we did have a question, and I just, oops, Daisy, okay. Yeah, so can you talk about your journey with getting help? So things like possibly having the wrong doctors, dealing with health insurance, and the things like trying different medications.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So, it was a really tough journey with medicine, with doctors. I mean, I remember earlier in the live that you did, you were talking about how you've tried everything. And I was like, yes, sister, like, I get that. I get that because I'm in a better place now because I feel like I have the right cocktail and I have really great doctors, and I love my group therapy people and my support system. But it took years and years for me to get to this place, and it's an ongoing process, right? Like every day we got to work on ourselves, and every day we have to make sure that we're trying to optimize our mental health and living a functional, mentally healthy life, right? But in the beginning, I had a really tough time with insurance just because, I mean, let me start off with saying like the doctors. So the doctors, a lot of the doctors that I met with like wouldn't take the insurance, and then you had to go see doctors that were under your insurance, and then I wouldn't connect with those doctors because, again, going to therapy or even a psychiatrist, as you know, I'm sure, it's kind of like dating. You have to vibe with the person. You have to trust this person. You're telling them something very deeply personal things, and you want to make sure you're with someone that you really trust and a professional that you feel will really help you. And it took a long time for me to find those people, and then put on insurance on top of that. And if you found somebody that you actually liked but you couldn't afford them, then it's like, shit, now I got to try again. Sorry for cursing. You know, it's a lot. That was a really tough experience, but I'm really lucky now that I have a good support system when it comes to psychiatrists, when it comes to therapists, and also group therapists. Now with medicine, I tried so many different types of medicines, and the ones that I have now are very good for me. And I mean, finding the right medicine sometimes can take months. It's not like something that takes days. A lot of people don't just think like, oh, you know, I'll try a new medicine, then maybe a week later I'll feel fine. No, sometimes it could take 2 months. So that waiting process and that kind of toll on your mental health, and that kind of feeling hopeless rather, when you're trying to see if a medicine works for you, it was a really big struggle. And I had to constantly lean on my support system and try to remain optimistic and keep the routine that I had while I was struggling with my medicines. And that was really hard. That was really hard because you sometimes feel like you're not yourself. You feel like a zombie, or you're just tired all the time. You're just exhausted, or you're just feeling anxious and you're not sleeping right. It really does take a toll on your mental health. And then I think, what was the rest of the question? I'm sorry.
You've covered the question really well, and I'd actually you've done great. I just want to add one tiny little piece of information, which is on average, people who are diagnosed with bipolar disorder a bit later, it actually can take up to 2 years to find a treatment that works. So I just want to put that piece of information out there because I don't want people to think that if that's happening to you that you're unusual. You're actually not. You're actually quite usual if it's taking you months or even more to find a medication. So I just want to mention that.
Yes.
So yeah, thank you for sharing that. So we've got a question from Grace Life 7, and she asks that, she says, how do you know if you have bipolar? Because one therapist says I do, and the new one says that I don't. Who do I listen to? Who do I believe?
Oh, okay. So for bipolar, bipolar 1 disorder, mania, a manic episode needs to be present in order for you to be diagnosed with bipolar 1. So if you've never had a manic episode, then you don't have bipolar 1. You may have bipolar 2. In terms of who do you trust, I would, first of all, I would do my own research. No one knows you better than you. So I would do extensive research on both bipolar and maybe borderline, anything that you feel like you're feeling, depression, anxiety. Do extensive research, because you have to trust yourself first, because like I said, you know yourself better than this doctor does. Also, they are a professional for a reason. I've been in this predicament before, where I was researching borderline personality disorder, and I was like, oh, that sounds like me. There's certain things that are borderline, and that sounds like me. Maybe I have borderline personality disorder. Maybe I have a dual diagnosis. And then I had to realize that I'm not a doctor, and I should speak with a professional first, you know? And they assured me, this was a professional that I've known for a long time and that I trust, and I, you know, relayed that I may be showing some other symptoms. They assured me, and they said, listen, no, you have bipolar 1. You may be experiencing these other things, but because you're not, it's not hindering your functionality and affecting all of your relationships, you just have a bipolar 1 diagnosis, and, you know, with anxiety and depression. But do make sure that since you're your new therapist, they're probably still getting to know you. So if this is a therapist that you like and you want to continue forward with, make sure that you're being very open and honest with them about what's going on with you now. And it may not, your diagnosis right now may not be as important as them getting to know your history, how you're feeling, and then I would trust them to make that decision for you. But it has to start with you being 100% open with them about your symptoms, signs, everything that you're feeling. Because with a new therapist, like kind of like I mentioned earlier, it's really hard to find someone that you can trust, but you have to keep going, like keep trying, and make sure you're vulnerable and taking care of yourself and being honest with them about what's going on with you so you can get that proper diagnosis.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And so I want to talk just a little bit about relationships. So we talked a little bit about stigma in the Latino community, and I just was wondering, does any of that actually enter your personal relationships, or have those been, you know, sort of that kind of stigma free?
So like my family?
No, I was actually thinking intimate relationships.
Oh, well, I have a fiance. We've been together for 7 years. And yes, my diagnosis has 100% affected my relationship. It's funny because in the beginning of my relationship, it was just honeymoon phase for like maybe the first 3 years of our relationship was definitely honeymoon phase. And we rarely argued, like never argued especially the first 2 years. And he was really convinced, and I did, you know, open up to him and told him about, you know, my diagnosis, my depression, anxiety, but he really, along with a lot of other people, some people just assume that I don't have bipolar. Even though I'm Bipolar Senorita, they think, oh, look, she's pretty. Oh, look, she's doing this shoot, or, you know, is functional and has her stepsons and her fiance. She's not really mentally ill. And I'm like, but I am, you know. So my fiance was kind of in denial about my mental illness for the first 3 years of our relationship. And it wasn't until I think it was like my fourth year where I fell into like a really deep depression. It was in the summertime. I fell into a deep depression, and he was away for most of the summer. Like he didn't really see me a lot during the week. During the weekends when he would come over, the mess that would happen in my room through the beginning of the week, I would just clean it and like make myself look as functional as possible, because I wanted him to not think that I just wanted him to not worry, and I wanted us to be together and not have to talk about depression anymore. So yeah, it was like the first 3 years, definitely it was not really present, because we were in our honeymoon phase and I didn't really talk about it much. Fast forward to maybe, I want to say like 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, when I graduated from my acting conservatory, and I had such a strict schedule then. When I met him, I had such a strict schedule with, you know, I was doing what I love every day, and I was breathing this school like day and night, and then we would hang out at night. And then when I graduated, I had really nothing to do. I was like, whoa, now what? And then I fell into a depression again, and I had to really have this whole medicine situation again. I had to see a new psychiatrist, figure out what medicines work for me and what didn't work for me. And that's when things started to get a little rocky, and he realized like, oh wait, wow, she actually does have an illness, and this is something that is going to be a part of my life forever. And I had to make that very clear to him. And in other relationships, like friendships and stuff, I had to make it really clear that I'm not my mental illness, but I have a mental illness. And this is something that you're going to have to deal with and help me with if you're going to be with me forever. And that's when the educating part of like educate you about my illness, my symptoms, what you can do to help me. That's when that really came into play. But it affects my relationship because sometimes when I can't get out of bed in the morning, he has to kind of help me and be like, okay, let's try X, Y, and Z. Maybe this will help you. And in times where I may feel very depressed, he has to kind of step up to the plate and again, see what kind of choices need to be made to help me and guide me out of my depression. So it's been trial and error. It's been 7 years, but it's really trial and error. It's a lot of patience, and there has to be, the person that you're with needs to accept fully what the situation is, but also needs to be educated on how to help you and what your diagnosis is.
Thank you so much. I know we've got other questions coming up here. Just one. So you said you went through the experience of educating your partner about your illness. Now, are there any tips you would give to anyone who's in a relationship? Sam asks, are there any tips for helping your loved one actually understand your illness? So if someone's having a hard time.
Oh, Sam, that's a good question. Oh God. It's so, it's very funny because my fiance is the most even keel person that there is. Like, he is the same guy. I shouldn't say he's the same guy. He's a great guy, but he's so like there, like he's so present, and he knows how he feels, and he's just like a happy person. You know what I mean? Like, you see him and he's like, hey, like he's just that guy. And I have bipolar disorder, and it's really hard. He's told me he's maybe had anxiety like twice in his life. And it was like, I'm like, you were nervous. Like, you were just nervous, like, not anxiety,
Yeah.
So it's very hard for me. It's a blessing to be in this relationship because he balances me out. But the downfall is he has no idea, and he cannot relate. And that has been a really hard thing in our relationship, because it's trying to explain apples to oranges or something. I don't know if that's I don't know, but it's really trying to explain something that someone cannot understand. And part of my life's work is trying to get people to understand how I feel, even if they can't relate to it in any way, shape, or form. So what I've done is, actually, I've used this quarantine as an example. And because he and a lot of other people in my life are like, oh my God, I can't be in this house forever. I feel crazy. I feel like I'm losing my mind. These are the words that they're using. And I understand that they're triggering words, and I apologize. But this is what they're saying. I'm quoting them, like, I feel like I'm losing my mind. I feel like I'm suffocating, and I'm getting really sad, and I don't want to change my clothes, and I'm just overeating. And I've said to them, and I've said to my fiance, like, this is how I feel sometimes on a random Tuesday for no reason, and sometimes I'll cope by eating too much or not eating at all. And sometimes I feel this way just normally. And it's been an eye-opener for these people. And they're like, wow, I can't even imagine how that feels on a day where you're supposed to function. So I've actually used this quarantine as an example. Maybe you can do that. And I found it to be pretty helpful. Also, one of the things that I can say is, with my family, like we were talking about stigma in the Latino community, I think that part of the reason, and other families too, and you may relate, people don't realize the amount of pain that comes with a mental illness. And And until they realize how painful it can be, even if they can't relate and they realize, wow, you're in a lot of pain. Like, I can't feel your pain. I can't, like, some people aren't able to really empathize. Like, I can't feel your pain, but I can see your pain. And I think that we need to get help now. Like, I think that the only option is to get help. And for someone, for me, my fiance, I've said, listen, I know you can't understand, but I know that you can see that I'm in pain right now. Like, I know you can see how I look. I know that you can sense something. And the only option for me is to get help. And you can help me in that process. I've involved him in that process so he can work it out with me, although he can't relate. I hope that helps.
I think that's brilliant. Thank you. So a quick follow-up question.
Yes.
So talks about how your symptoms are affecting your daily life. And then are they to a point where you're struggling to function on a daily basis? So your symptoms right now, how are they doing, I guess, is what this person is asking about.
Right now, I'm doing very well. I actually just, I was thinking about it because I was shooting an episode. I'm doing something called Mental Health Day, which I'll talk about later. But to answer your question, yesterday I started to feel a great deal of anxiety. And it was because my fiance was like, I have two stepsons. They're 9 and 10, and obviously they're not in school right now. And he said, hey, they're not going to be in school until probably April 15th or later. And for some reason, that was like a slap in the face. I was like, oh my God, what? And it made me realize, like, oh my God, how long can we quarantine for? Like, this is the real deal. I don't know why. It was just a slap in the face. And then I started to feel a great deal of anxiety. And I kind of wanted to withdraw and like avoid, which is what I normally do because I got afraid. But something that I've done is, which I'm going to start doing even more now because of quarantine, sometimes when I feel triggering feelings or emotions, I'll rate it on a scale from 1 to 10. I'll go, oh, you know what? I'm feeling a little like depressed, a little anxious, or I'm like, maybe that's like a 5 out of 10. So when I'm feeling a 5 out of 10, like it grounds me. Like, I'm like, 5 out of 10 is only half. It's not that. So let's try this. Let's try that. And so that's actually been really helpful, this scale thing that I've done. And I got that because there's an app that I'm using with my therapist, and it's like this mood tracker diary, and it asks you to rate. Do you know it? It's great.
I've talked about mood trackers on my website as well at natashatracy.com because a lot of people ask about them, and I don't, like you're saying, a lot of people find them very helpful with bipolar.
So helpful. It just grounds me. I'm like, oh, a 7. Okay, this is pretty high. We gotta, do something. We gotta do something about this, So that's really helped me. But overall, I've been doing really well during this quarantine. I've got to make sure I put some jeans on at some point or something. Like, I've been literally wearing sweatpants, pajamas. Like, I'm wearing like sweatpants underneath this sweater. Like, it's cute and everything, but like from the waist down, it's a mess. But overall, I've been good. Thank you for asking. That's very, very nice.
Thank you for answering. I do want to wrap up, so I want to say thank you so much to all of the Healthy Place fans. Thank you for joining us on Instagram, but I am not going to let Daylene go until she gives us one more spoken word poem, if that's okay with you.
Yes, of course, of course. Okay, maybe I'll do ugly. Okay. See, I've never seen an ugly without a story, and I've known ugly in all its ugly glory. But I usually place ugly in its own ugly category. Like, ugly takes up too much space that needs its own territory. Now, I'm not trying to sound too accusatory, but when I speak of my illness, I put aside the ugly like it's a...
Oh, looks like there's just a teeny...
Oh, okay. What happened?
You're good. We lost you for half a second.
Oh. Because I feel like if I share my ugly, you'll get all discriminatory and leave comments, and that'll leave me in a racing mental purgatory. When I usually speak words of my illness, I usually speak words of forgiveness. I speak my words for those who listen, know they're not alone in this. And when I say ugly, I mean when you've woken up one morning, tears pouring down your cheeks because you can't remember where you are or how you fell asleep here. Your episode is over, dear. Time for you to disappear and place this ugly right next to your past ugly memory around the same time last year when you closed your eyes and walked across the freeway because you felt like, God, that's right. You can walk on water. And everything God knows, it's because you taught her, officer, why are you arresting me? Don't you have any sympathy? I have a mental illness. I just didn't take my meds religiously. But I'm a normal person. I'm a creative and I can't work a 9 to 5. I'm pursuing my dreams while my mental demons try to eat me alive. Now, officer, let's talk for 4 to 5 hours. I'll do most of the talking. I'll tell you how once I heard voices barking my name on a plane, and now every time I travel, I'll take some champagne for the pain. Now, officer, were you trained when you're confronted with a person like me, who technically hasn't done any criminal activity? You think we're all scapegoats in today's society? You think it's cool how accepting my illness brought out my true humanity? See, I know my ugly is ugly, and I can only speak for me. When I tell you when I was manic, I spent a ton of money, and my mind was hallucinating and playing tricks on me, like when my mother, father, sister were lovingly holding me, I actually saw them choking me. And to this day, when my mind replays this, that's all I'll ever see. And there is so much more ugly in so many stories. Society may call us crazy, but what we've been through isn't imaginatory. It's not just how we got through, it's what we've gone through. And how maybe, just maybe, your past ugly can be your future breakthrough. Thank you, guys.
Where can people find you, Daylene, online?
Yes, okay, so at Daylene Santana on Instagram, at Daylene Santana on Facebook, and if I could just do a quick little plug.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Mental Health Day is a show that I'm doing now for everyone in quarantine that may be struggling with mental health issues or maybe living with a mental illness. It's something that I'm going to do hopefully once or twice a week to just help us during this time, because I think we all need it and we're not alone. And for everyone who's watching and may feel alone in this, please remember that someone needs what you have. It's my favorite quote in the world, but I really, really mean it, because someone really does need what you have.
Thank you so much for spending some time with us and with HealthyPlace today. You have been absolutely lovely to talk to, and I really look forward to looking up more of your work.
Yes, thanks, Natasha. Same here, Natasha. Thank you so much. It's been awesome talking to you, and thank you guys for all tuning in. It means a lot.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.